Good day to you, Year 9. Welcome back to Science. We are on week 3. This is lesson number 2. We're going to be looking at growth and a process called differentiation. Well done for continuing to access the lessons. As we've said before, you won't be able to have time in year 10 and 11 to catch up on these. So you are doing the right thing, so very well done. As you're hearing my voice, I imagine you have got your sound on. There's the usual link to what it is that we are studying, the specification, and things that you will need for the lesson. Right, so as said, we're going to be looking at growth and differentiation. We need to know about the differences in plants and animals, and actually what differentiation actually is, because you probably have not come across that before. Right, before we get going, there are 4 key terms of development of a baby. On the left-hand side, we've got zygote, embryo, fetus, and baby. And we've got some definitions on the right-hand side. You don't need to write any of this down at the moment. When we go through the answers, if there is any that you didn't know, then you can pause the video and copy those down. But if you do know all of those, then that's absolutely fine. So if you could pause the video now and try and connect up the key word to the definition. Okay, so hopefully we've had a go at matching those up, and hopefully we have got that a zygote is the fertilized cell that multiplies. It's the first stage of development. So when the nuclei of the sperm and the egg fuse together in fertilization, it makes one cell, and then that starts multiplying. That is the zygote. Embryos are the next step, and it's an early form in the first 2 months of pregnancy. So the cells are dividing, so you end up with many cells. You have not got something that resembles a baby yet. The next stage is fetus, and this is a human in the later and more advanced stage of pregnancy before birth, so it will look more like an actual baby. And then the final one is a baby, is the newborn human child. So it only becomes a baby after it has been born. Okay, so pop down the title and going to go through what we actually all need to know. We need to have an understanding of cell differentiation. As I say, you probably haven't come across that term. So one of the big things is going to be knowing what it actually means. And we're going to be looking at that in animal and plant cells. If you want to pause the video and have a look at what you need to be able to accomplish by the end of this, then please do. Okay, so at the bottom we've got an animation and a picture. On the left hand side we've got an embryo, so that's at week 4 of a human. And then on the right hand side we've got an animation of some plants growing. Some questions for you to have a think about. How do plants and animals grow? How is animal and plant growth similar? And also, how is it different? So pause the video, just have a think about the answers to those 3 things. There's no right or wrong answer, it's just what you already know before we move on. So if you could pause the video now, have a think. Okay, so hopefully you've had a think about those 3 questions. So how do animals and plants grow? You might have spoken about cell division because that's what we were looking at in the last lesson. So you might have talked about mitosis because it's not the cells just getting bigger, it's that they're actually dividing. How is animal and plant growth similar? Again, there you might have put thought of lots of different things. You might have said about how quickly it happens, the way in which it happens. Anything that you've already done is great. And how is it different? Now this one will be the hard one to answer. You might have spoken about how plants grow in one direction or something like that. If you couldn't think of anything, then that's absolutely fine, because these are the questions that we're going to be looking at today. Right, differentiation. A couple of interesting facts that you do not need to write down, but something to think about, and this will be relevant to differentiation. How many cells do you think there are in an adult? Do you think there's hundreds of cells that make us? Or do you think that there's thousands of cells? How many do you think make up an adult? Now, it is an estimate, but scientists estimate that there's around 37.2 trillion cells that make up an adult. So at the moment, you're still growing. So you haven't reached that number yet, around that number yet, but an adult will have about 37.2 trillion cells. Huge number. How many different types of cells do you think there are? So Miss Corbett did a lesson on specialised animal cells, one of the first lessons in the first week, where you have to know about 4 different animal specialised cells. But how many different types of cells do you think there are in total in a human body? Again, it's an estimate, but there's around 200 different types of cells. So a huge number of different types of cells. Obviously, all of those different types have got a different function that keep us alive. Okay, so differentiation. Now we're going to be looking at what actually differentiation means. And it's a really important process because it's what takes us from a zygote, so that cell, that newly fertilized cell, all the way up to a fetus and then obviously a baby. So in the early development of animal and plant embryos, the cells are unspecialized. So that means that they have not got a specific role. So you won't find neurons or muscle cells or sperm and egg cells or any specialized cells. They are unspecialized. They're kind of just a generic cell, and they can become any type of cell, and we call those stem cells. So stem cells are unspecialized cells. Now, you might have come across the term stem cells before because there's a lot of debate on whether we should be doing things like stem cell research. But because these cells can become any other type of cell, they have a huge potential in treating diseases. Now, as the cells in the embryo divide and grow and develop, they begin to differentiate. So they become specialized. So they become those cells we're familiar with: red blood cells, white blood cells, neurons, things like that. And they have a particular function. So the process of differentiating is when a cell becomes specialized. Okay, so what you now need to do is define the following terms. What is a stem cell? What is a specialized cell? And what is differentiation? If you're really struggling, then rewind a little bit and put down any additional bits that you didn't know. We will go over some definitions afterwards. So pause the video, define those 3 things. Right. Now, you don't need a different coloured pen, but if you have got one, excellent. It's just an easy way of seeing how you're getting along. Hopefully, we have got something that resembles these definitions. They don't need to be exactly the same as these definitions, but a stem cell is an undifferentiated cell, so it can become a wide variety of different cell types. A specialized cell is a cell that is adapted to carry out a particular function. And differentiation is the process where cells become specialized for that particular function. If you want to add to your definitions or anything you've missed out, then please pause the video and do that. Right, now we need to be able to describe the differences and similarities between differentiation in animal cells and in plant cells. So we're going to start with animal cells. And in animal cells, many, not all, but the majority of the cells become specialized very early on. So during the development of the baby, they will actually differentiate. So they won't be able to become stem cells again. They will differentiate into those specialized cells. Now that happens because some genes are switched on, others are switched off inside the cell, and they'll end up having different subcellular structures or organelles. So cells that need lots of energy will have lots of mitochondria, things like that. And they usually divide by mitosis. So that's what the cell division we looked at last lesson. But as I said last lesson, there is another type called meiosis, which is to do with making sperm and eggs, but the vast majority divide by mitosis. Adult stem cells, some differentiated cells such as red blood cells cannot divide. So they are replaced by adult stem cells. So inside us, we have got some of these stem cells. You will find them in our bone marrow, and they're called adult stem cells. So they are not able to make any type of cell like they are in embryonic stem cells, but they are able to make some of them. So things like red blood cells, because they haven't got a nucleus, they don't divide. So we do have these stem cells that make some of those cells. In a mature animal, little or no growth takes place. So when you reach adulthood, you don't continue growing, kind of finish around 18. So that cell division that's happening inside our bodies is only there to repair or replace damaged cells. There are some pictures underneath of some different types of cells taken by microscope. So we have a neuron on the left. We've got some blood cells. So the ones with the purpley bit inside are going to be the white blood cells. The others are all red blood cells. Got some different lining structures in the next two containing cells. Now, in plants is slightly different. So unlike animal cells, most plant cells are able to differentiate throughout their lives. So it's not that they are limited by what cells they can make. They can keep differentiating all the way through their life. Undifferentiated cells are formed at active regions of the roots and stems known as meristems, which is in my top 10 favourite words. So in the picture you can see the tip of a shoot, and the region at the top is where you find these stem cells, and that region is the meristem. You will find these meristems in the tips of roots and shoots. At the meristems, mitosis takes place continuously, and cells are able to elongate and grow. Now, in animals, the cells don't elongate, get longer. They stay the same size. We grow by just having more cells. So that cell division creating more cells. In plants, though, the cells can actually get longer, and that's really important when they're growing, because it means that they're able to grow towards stimuli like light or gravity. When the cell is in its final position, it differentiates, but this is not always permanent. Move a cell to another part of the plant and it can re-differentiate. So I said that in animals before, once you become a specialized cell, you can't go back to the stem cell, but actually in plants you can, which is why if you take a cutting of a plant and plant that up, it will start growing different cells like root cells, so they can make a brand new plant. Now, when we're cloning, we can clone plants really easily because all we need to do is take a cutting and we can plant that. And that will make a genetically identical organism, a clone of that. In animals, though, it's a little bit more difficult because most of the animal cells differentiate permanently early on in development. So animal clones can only be made by cloning embryos in some way, although adult cells can be used to make an embryo. So what that is saying is that it's very hard to clone animals because when you reach after you're born, your cells have already differentiated, so you can't have those stem cells that can make any other type of cell. If you do want to clone them, which does happen in farming, you take the embryo and you actually basically cut it up and you form clones that you can then put into surrogate animals, so surrogate cows or surrogate sheep. There is, though, a different type of technology, which is cloning adult cells, which is in reference to the picture of Dolly the sheep. You might have heard of her before, but they took a cell from an adult sheep and they cloned it. You do not need to know about cloning in the combined science. Cloning animals and plants does come up, though, in the triple in a different chapter. What I'd like you to do now is have a go at this question. So explain how differentiation differs in animal and plant cells. It's going to be worth 4 marks. So because the command word is explain, we need to say how that is happening, why that is happening, why that's important. So can you pause the video, please, and have a go at answering that question. Okay, so grab that other colour pen if you have one, and let's have a look at whether we got the information, enough information to get 4 marks. Now, your answer might be slightly different to the one that is on this slide, but basically, if you have said about in animals, differentiation occurs during development or embryo development, that would be worth a mark. If you said that it is then permanent, where you can't go back, that would then be a mark. In plants, it occurs throughout their life, so that would be a mark, and can be reversed or changed, would be a mark. Okay, so that is it for growth and differentiation. It's quite a short section of the syllabus. If you're still not happy with anything that we have covered, because there are some new words, it's slightly more complicated, please refer to the Caboodle digital book, have a read through that, and have a go at answering some of those questions. Here, just going back to that previous slide, what it is that you need to know. So if you want to pause the video, run through it, you've got the grades on the left hand side, so run through it, see whether you're able to achieve your grade. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope that you are all safe and well, and your families are safe and well. Well done for going through this lesson. Don't forget that there will be work set on Doddle that will be due in at the end of Easter for these lessons, just so that you're able to see how much you are taking on. Thank you very much and take care. Goodbye, Year 9.